Not every JRPG needs a 100-hour commitment. Some of the best ones, they get in, deliver an amazing experience, and let you move on with your life. Under 40 hours, no filler, no bloat, just quality. Today I'm counting down 15 modern JRPGs that actually respect your time. Let's go.
Starting strong with 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This game is a masterpiece that nobody played. It's a sci-fi visual novel mixed with tactical mech combat, which sounds weird on paper, but Vanillaware absolutely nailed it. The vibe is pure mystery thriller. You're controlling 13 different protagonists across different time periods, and the story is this insane time travel conspiracy that actually sticks the landing. The hook is how the narrative unfolds. You're not going A to B linearly, you're jumping between characters, piecing together fragments, and every revelation hits different because you've been working for it. The combat sections are basically tower defense with mechs, and while they're simple, they're satisfying enough to break up the visual novel segments. So, why did this bomb? Vanillaware announced it for PS4 and Vita back in 2015, but development dragged on forever. The Vita version got cancelled in 2018, and the game finally hit PS4 in Japan in November 2019, then worldwide in September 2020, right as the PS5 was launching. Terrible timing. Plus, it's hard to market a game that's, trust me, the story's incredible when you can't show clips without spoilers. It reviewed amazingly, sold poorly, and now it's this cult classic that JRPG fans whisper about. You can finish it in about 25-30 hours, and every single one of those hours is earned. Don't sleep on this.
Okay, Whiplash time. From cerebral sci-fi to pure Platinum Games action. Astral Chain is Platinum Games doing what they do best, stylish combat that makes you feel like a god. But here's what makes it different from Bayonetta or Nier Automata. You're controlling two characters simultaneously. You've got your police officer protagonist and your Legion, which is basically a stand from JoJo's. The combat system is about coordinating attacks between both of them, and when you get into the flow, it's intoxicating. The vibe is cyberpunk police procedural meets Tokutsu. You're investigating cases, exploring this dystopian future city, and the whole aesthetic is just dripping with style. Platinum's art direction is unmatched. The game also has this light investigation gameplay between combat sections that actually works. It's not deep, but it adds pacing variety. Here's the tragedy. It's a Switch exclusive. Platinum made this specifically for Nintendo, which means a huge chunk of the action game audience on PlayStation and PC just can't play it. Plus, it launched in August 2019, the same year Devil May Cry 5 and Sekiro dropped in March. It got buried in a stacked year for action games. About 30-35 hours to complete, and it's one of the best action RPGs nobody talks about. If you have a Switch, fix that. Alright, total vibe shift. We're going retro. Cosmic Star Heroine is Zeboyd Games' love letter to Chrono Trigger and Phantasy Star, and it absolutely nails that 16-bit JRPG feeling without being derivative. The pixel art is gorgeous, the sci-fi setting is fresh, and the turn-based combat has this brilliant twist where abilities can only be used once per battle until you recharge. That one-use system completely changes how you approach fights. You're not spamming your best move. You're planning ahead, managing resources, making every turn count. It creates this tension where battles feel like puzzles, and when you pull off a perfect sequence, it's so satisfying. The story moves fast too, constantly throwing new locations and party members at you without padding. So why isn't this more popular? Honestly, it's an indie game that launched in a crowded year with limited marketing budget. Zeboyd's previous games were Xbox Live Arcade titles, so their audience wasn't massive to begin with. Plus, the retro aesthetic is polarizing. Some people see 16-bit graphics and bounce immediately, which is their loss. You can finish this in about 12 to 15 hours, making it the shortest game on this list, but it's densely packed with content. For the price point, it's an absolute steal, and it deserves way more recognition than it got. So this is the prequel to Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, and here's the thing. It's not trying to be Suikoden. Rising is more of a Metroidvania with light RPG elements and town building mechanics, You're playing as a treasure hunter exploring this mining town, recruiting characters, and gradually unlocking new areas as you gain abilities. The vibe is cozy adventure with satisfying progression loops. The combat is simple but fun. You're chaining attacks between 3 characters, building combos, and the responsiveness is solid. What makes it work is the town building aspect. As you complete quests, the town grows, new shops open, and you're genuinely invested in making this place thrive. It's not revolutionary, but it's executed really well. Here's where it gets complicated. This was funded as part of the Kickstarter for 100 Heroes, and a lot of backers felt like it was padding, a smaller game to keep people engaged while the main project was in development. The reception was mixed because people wanted Suikoden, not Metroidvania. But if you judge Rising on its own merits instead of what you wanted it to be, it's a charming 10 to 15 hour experience that sets up 100 Heroes nicely. The problem is expectations, not execution. It's worth playing if you go in knowing what it actually is.
Okay, this one's recent. Relink is Cygames' attempt to bring their massive mobile gacha game into a proper action RPG. And honestly, they crushed it. This is what happens when a developer with unlimited money decides to make a game without predatory gacha mechanics. The combat is character action light. It's not as deep as Devil May Cry, but it's responsive, flashy, and every character plays differently. The vibe is high fantasy anime with gorgeous visuals. The world feels lived in, the character designs are peak Cygames, and the voice acting is genuinely good in both languages. You're essentially playing through a fantasy adventure with your crew, fighting dragons and saving kingdoms. The gameplay loop is mission-based rather than open world, which keeps the pacing tight. You select a quest, fight through it with your party, get loot, upgrade, repeat. It's borderline Monster Hunter structure, and it works. So why isn't everyone talking about this? It launched in a competitive window, and frankly, it's a little safe. There's nothing revolutionary here. It's extremely competent at everything without excelling at any one thing. Plus, being attached to a mobile game made some people skeptical. But if you want a 25-30-hour action JRPG with high production values and no nonsense, Relink delivers. It's comfort food gaming in the best way.
Time to get melancholic. I Am Setsuna was Tokyo RPG Factory's first game, and it's basically, what if we made Chrono Trigger, but sad? The entire game is covered in snow. The color palette is whites and blues, and the piano soundtrack is hauntingly beautiful. You're escorting a sacrifice to her death, and the whole vibe is bittersweet tragedy. The combat is lifted straight from Chrono Trigger. Active time battle with positioning, dual and triple techs, timing-based bonus damage. It's familiar in the best way. The hook is the Sprint Night system for customization and the momentum mechanic that rewards perfect timing. Nothing groundbreaking, but solid execution of classic mechanics. Here's the tragedy, and it's ironic. Tokyo RPG Factory was created specifically to make old-school JRPGs, but launched I Am Setsuna in 2016 when the indie scene was already flooded with retro throwbacks. It got praised for its atmosphere and music, but criticized for being too safe and too short. Critics wanted more innovation. Then, the studio's later games tried to innovate more and got criticized for straying from the formula. They couldn't win. The game runs about 20-25 hours, and while it's not perfect, the emotional core and presentation are genuinely affecting. It deserved better than being dismissed as just another Chrono Trigger clone. Sometimes safe can be good. This is Square Enix finally localizing a 1994 Super Famicom game in 2022, and holy shit, it's still creative. Live Alive has 7 different scenarios spanning different time periods: prehistory, feudal Japan, Wild West, present day, near future, distant future, and sci-fi. Each one is a self-contained story with different gameplay styles, and then they all connect in a final chapter. The structure alone makes it unique. The HD 2D remake is stunning. Square Enix's Octopath engine makes the sprite work pop, and each time period has distinct visual flavor. The combat is grid-based tactical with positioning mattering, cooldowns on abilities, and different characters playing completely differently. The Edo Japan chapter is a stealth infiltration mission. The wrestling chapter is pure combat gauntlet. The variety is the entire point. So why did the original never leave Japan? Square was weird about localization in the 90s, and by the time they considered it, the game felt dated. The remake did well critically, but had zero mainstream buzz because it's a 30-year-old game that most people never heard of. Finishing all scenarios and the finale takes about 20-25 hours, and it's one of the most creative JRPGs ever made. If you want something genuinely different from the genre's usual tropes, this is it. The remake made it accessible, but it still feels like a hidden gem because nobody marketed it properly.
Alright, this is Tokyo RPG Factory's second game, and it tried to be more ambitious than I Am Setsuna. The hook is the lost mechanic. The world is literally disappearing and you have to restore locations using memories. Conceptually, it's interesting. The vibe is still melancholic fantasy, but with more color this time. They heard the criticism about Setsuna being too monochromatic and corrected it. Combat builds on Setsuna's foundation with the Volcasuit system, basically mech forms for characters that change abilities and stats. Positioning matters more here, with AoE attacks and battlefield awareness being critical. The ATB system is refined from Setsuna with better momentum mechanics. On paper, this should have been the improved sequel. Instead, it bombed harder. Critics and players felt it was generic despite the cool world restoration mechanic. The story didn't land emotionally like Setsuna's did, and the improvements to combat didn't compensate for weaker characters and pacing issues. It came out in 2018 when the retro JRPG novelty was completely worn off, and people wanted more than refined Chrono Trigger mechanics. About 25-30 hours to complete, and honestly, it's not bad, it's just forgettable, which is worse. Tokyo RPG Factory would eventually be absorbed back into Square Enix in 2024, after struggling to find commercial success, and Lost Sphere is this middle child that nobody remembers. There's good stuff here if you're desperate for classic JRPG gameplay, but I get why it didn't connect.
Okay, so this is the upgraded version of the original Nier. And if you only played Automata, you need to experience this. It's the same Yoko Taro insanity, heartbreaking story, philosophical themes, multiple endings that recontextualize everything, but it's the foundation for Automata's world. The vibe is post-apocalyptic fantasy that gets progressively more disturbing as you uncover what's really happening. The combat is dramatically improved from the 2010 original. It's not platinum tier like Automata, but it's competent action RPG stuff now. The magic system is flashy, weapon variety is solid, and it doesn't feel clunky anymore. The real draw is the story and characters. The relationship between the protagonist and Kaine is genuinely moving, and the fifth ending added for this version destroyed me emotionally. So why isn't this as massive as Automata? It came out during the pandemic when everything was competing for attention, and frankly, Automata's mainstream success meant Replicant felt like a step back mechanically. It is older, and it shows in the quest design and pacing. Plus, calling it VI.1.22 is the most Yoko Taro thing ever, but it also confused casual buyers who didn't know what it was. About 30-35 hours for the main endings, more if you're a completionist. If Automata clicked for you, Replicant is essential. It just didn't get the same marketing push or cultural moment.
So Bandai Namco made an action JRPG about psychics fighting monsters in a futuristic Japan, and it's way better than it has any right to be. You're controlling either Yuito or Kasane, two protagonists with different perspectives on the same story, and the psychokinetic combat is absurdly fun. You're throwing cars, signs, debris at enemies while dodging and managing your abilities. It's fast, flashy, and satisfying. The vibe is anime as hell. It's got that Tales series energy with social sim elements, where you bond with party members between missions. The dual protagonist structure means you're getting two sides of the conspiracy, and the way their stories intersect is genuinely clever. Combat gets deeper as you unlock SAS powers from teammates, letting you combine abilities for ridiculous combos. Brain punk aesthetic is on point too. Here's the problem.
It launched the same month as Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and right after Resident Evil Village. Terrible timing. Plus, the social sim stuff and visual novel presentation turned off some action game fans, while JRPG purists didn't vibe with the mission structure. It got decent reviews, but no momentum. Each protagonist's route is about 20-25 hours, and playing both gives you the full picture. It's one of those games that nails its core concept, but got lost in the release schedule noise. Criminally underrated, especially if you liked Code Vein or Tales games.
This is Sabotage Studios' love letter to Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG, and it might be the best retro-inspired JRPG of the modern era. The pixel art is absolutely gorgeous. It's not trying to look like a SNES game, it's what you remember SNES games looking like through nostalgia goggles. The vibe is whimsical adventure with surprising emotional depth. Combat is turn-based with timing mechanics lifted straight from Super Mario RPG. You press buttons at the right moment to boost attacks or reduce damage, and it keeps you engaged during battles. The lock system, where you can disable enemy abilities by hitting them with specific damage types, adds strategy. No random encounters, visible enemies, and battles are short and snappy. They learned from the classics and refined the formula. So why isn't this dominating? Honestly, it is doing really well for an indie. It sold 100,000 copies on launch day and 250,000 in the first week, which crushed their expectations. By December 2023, it hit 4 million players across all platforms, including Game Pass and PS Plus. But it's still indie, so it doesn't have AAA marketing. Some critics felt it was too safe, too reverent to its inspirations without enough original identity. There's truth to that. It's peak, we made the good old JRPG you remember energy, which is great if that's what you want, but it's not reinventing anything. About 25-30 hours, and it's comfort food JRPG perfection. If you've been craving that classic Chrono Trigger feeling with modern polish, this is exactly that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Speaking of Super Mario RPG, Nintendo finally remade the original, and it's fantastic. The art style is this gorgeous toy box aesthetic that modernizes the pre-rendered sprites perfectly. They kept everything that made the original special: timed hits, the exploration, the humor, while adding quality of life improvements and post-game content. Combat is still the same timing-based system where pressing buttons at the right moment makes attacks stronger or blocks more effective. It's simple, but keeps you engaged. The charm is intact too. This game is genuinely funny, the characters have personality, and there's this cozy, adventurous vibe that's different from mainline Mario. It's a gateway JRPG in the best sense. The tragedy here is timing and audience mismatch. This launched in November 2023, a few months after Baldur's Gate 3 dominated the RPG conversation. Plus, it's a remake of a 1996 game, so hardcore fans already played it to death, and younger players didn't have nostalgia for it. Reviews were positive, but the "it's just a remake" discourse hurt it. About 15 to 20 hours to see everything, and it's perfect for JRPG beginners or Mario fans curious about the genre. But Nintendo barely marketed it, and it got overshadowed by their other releases. It deserved more attention as a brilliantly executed remake that respects the source material while improving accessibility. Okay, this is Square Enix trying to make a real-time tactical RPG, and it's incredibly underrated. The vibe is dark fantasy military strategy. You're commanding a mercenary company during a war, making tough decisions, and the tone is more Game of Thrones than typical JRPG. The art style is this painterly aesthetic that looks genuinely unique. Combat is real-time tactical where you're pausing to issue commands, positioning units, and managing abilities. It's somewhere between Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system and Fire Emblem's Tactics. The trick is the TP gauge that fills as you fight, letting you unleash powerful abilities when the timing is right. Battles are short, focused encounters rather than sprawling maps, which keeps the pace moving. So why did this flop? Square Enix released it with almost zero marketing in September 2022, the same month as Splatoon 3, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and Valkyrie Elysium. It got completely buried.
Plus, the demo ended at a weird spot that made the game feel slow and generic when it actually opens up later. Reviews were mixed because critics played a few hours and bounced. The full campaign is about 30 to 35 hours, and the later missions get genuinely challenging and strategic. It's not perfect, the story is predictable and characters are underdeveloped, but the tactical combat is excellent. This needed better marketing and a better demo. Total waste of potential.
This is Square Enix remaking Seiken Densetsu 3, which originally never came to the West, and turning it into a full 3D action RPG. The hook is the class system. You pick 3 characters from 6 options, and each has different class paths that completely change their playstyle. Replayability is built into the structure. Combat is action-focused with dodging, combos, and special abilities. It's not super deep, but it's fast and satisfying. The game has this bright, colorful fantasy vibe that's refreshing after all the dark, brooding JRPGs. Character art is gorgeous, environments are vibrant, and it's just pleasant to play. Multiple story paths, depending on who you choose, adds variety. Here's the issue. It launched in April 2020 at the start of the pandemic, alongside Final Fantasy VII Remake. Guess which one got all the attention? Trials of Mana got solid reviews but was completely overshadowed by the FF7 hype train. Plus, being a remake of a 90s game that most Western players never experienced meant it lacked nostalgia pull. About 20-25 hours for a single playthrough, and the class system encourages multiple runs. It's a great remake that deserved more spotlight, but the timing was catastrophic. Square buried their own game by releasing it the same month as their biggest remake ever.
Ending with Falcom and Ys 9 Monstrum Nox is everything great about this series refined. Fast action combat, incredible music, exploration-focused design, it's comfort food action JRPG. The hook this time is the Monstrum powers that give you traversal abilities like wall running, gliding, and teleportation. Moving through the city feels incredible. The vibe is darker than previous Ys games. You're trapped in a prison city, transformed into a monstrum, and investigating supernatural mysteries. The color palette is gothic, the soundtrack is heavy guitar rock, and the tone is more serious. Combat is the usual Ys excellence. Fast, responsive, party switching, and boss fights that actually require learning patterns. So why isn't Ys bigger in the West? Honestly, Falcom games always struggle with localization timing and marketing. Ys 9 came out in 2019 in Japan, but 2021 in the West, and by then, it felt old. Plus, Falcom's PS4 engine looks dated compared to AAA games, which hurts first impressions. The core fanbase loves these games, but they never break into the mainstream despite being consistently excellent. About 30 to 35 hours to complete, and if you like action RPGs, this is essential. The fact that Ys games aren't more popular is a genuine tragedy. Solid gameplay, amazing music, and they respect your time. What more do you want?
So there you go. 15 modern JRPGs that won't consume your entire year. Some of these are cult classics, some are forgotten gems, but all of them deliver complete experiences without demanding 100 hours of grinding. If you've been avoiding JRPGs because of the time commitment, try any of these. Let me know which ones you've played and what I missed in the comments. And hey, if you're tired of 80-hour slogs, maybe it's time the industry respects our time more often. Thanks for watching.